downtown Brooklyn as well. Most of these buildings around you are high-rise office buildings, and it's significantly less expensive to do business here, actually, in Brooklyn, because the rent for the office space out here is going to be way less than it's going to be across the river in Manhattan. So it behooves a lot of companies to relocate right over here into Brooklyn. It costs them a lot less money to set up shop here. This was, incidentally, right here at the Westinghouse High School, right down there, where the Office of Emergency Management operated actually on 9/11, and after Sandy. That's where they set up shop over there, because it's outside of Manhattan. To do anything on the island of Manhattan during a crisis or emergency becomes a major hassle. And so they have it over here in that high school, which is behind you. That's where the Office of Emergency Management sets up shop every time there's a major disaster, which seems to be happening more and more often, unfortunately. But I happen to know that because my significant other actually works there. Coming up here on the right, we have the Kings County Courthouse. Doesn't look very much like a courthouse, but that's what it is. Here's the entrance to the Brooklyn Bridge. And if you're wondering why we don't go across it on the bus, it's because we're too tall. When the Brooklyn Bridge was designed, there was no such thing as a double-decker bus, and there was no such thing as an 18-wheeler. It was the 1869 is when they started building it. And so it was designed with horses and carriages in mind, as well as pedestrians. And so they didn't make way. They didn't make enough headroom for us to go through. So terrain by making to the other side, but we would not. We'd be hanging from the cables, and we don't need to do that. So we use the Manhattan Bridge instead. This green space to your right is Cadman Plaza Park, which is named after the Reverend Samuel Parks Cadman. Let me guess, you've never heard of him. Not surprising, but he was actually famous once in the early 20th century. He was the pastor of the First Congregational Church of Brooklyn from 1901 until 1936 when he died. In 1923, he started broadcasting his sermons nationwide on the radio, and so he was the first radio preacher, actually, that forerunner to today's televangelists, for better or worse. And so he was a popular guy, and they named this park after him. And it separates the neighborhood of downtown Brooklyn behind us from Brooklyn Heights, which is where we're headed. Now, back during the 1950s and early 60s, there was a big push for urban renewal in the city. And they went through and demolished whole neighborhoods, as well as many of our old historic buildings, to make way for new structures. And in the process, we lost a lot of our history. The last straw came in 1963 when they demolished the original Penn Station to make way for Madison Square Garden. And then, finally, they passed some laws making it possible to declare old buildings or neighborhoods historic landmarks, and they formed the Landmarks Preservation Commission. The very first neighborhood to be declared a historic district was Brooklyn Heights, and that's the neighborhood we're entering right now. As we go around the bend here, you get a great view of the Brooklyn Bridge stretching out in front of you across the East River. You can see the Beekman Tower right across there. That's the big silver tower, and then a little bit to the left of that, of course, is number 1 World Trade Center, sometimes also known as the Freedom Tower. Now, please watch your heads down here. We have very low clearance. Coming up here on the right, see this white building on the corner? It's Grimaldi's Pizzeria. It's the most popular and famous pizza place in all of Brooklyn. And what happens here is when the weather is nice, see there's people waiting out here right now. And when the weather, if it was any warmer out, that line would be going all the way down the block. Now, Grimaldi's does not serve slices, and they don't accept credit cards, and they don't take reservations. You have to order a whole pie, you have to pay cash, and you gotta wait in line to get in. And people do. It's the famous Brooklyn pizza, and I happen to be a fan of Brooklyn pizza. I think it's the best pizza in the world. It's the thin crust. I just don't happen to like Grimaldi's because their sauce has chunks of tomato in it, so I don't care for it. But a lot of people American Ice Cream Factory is located in the old firehouse down here. We've got the Barge Music Cafe here on the shoreline. Right across the river is Pier 17 and your view of the skyline of Lower Manhattan. This is a good time to be doing this. By the time we get done with the tour, as we head back into Manhattan, it should be twilight, and you're going to see most of Midtown starting to light up for the evening.